Hello world! It's no secret that I love onsens, hot springs. If I could go every day, I would. Well, it turns out that in a certain city, I may be able to achieve my dream. I could have an onsen inside of my home. So I've come to Beppu to answer questions like, how do you go about tapping into the flow? Do you need to be rich? Would I never visit an onsen outside of the home again? Those are but a few of the questions that I'll try and answer in this video, for which I'll promise there'll be no further shots of me without clothes. Side note, technically this house I filmed in isn't in Beppu City. It's in Yufuin, which is a short drive away. This is what Beppu looks like. It's home to 120,000 residents and is the city with the largest hot spring water output in the world. Roughly 100,000 liters a minute flow out of the nearly 2,000 actively used hot spring sources. The only area in the world with more hot spring water output is Yellowstone National Park in the US. With all the hot spring water in Beppu, it's not uncommon for houses and apartments to have onsens inside of them. There are basically two ways to get hot spring water into your home: owning a hot spring source or subscribing to a hot spring supply.
で今ここで宣言の中で全体でみんなに分けてるのがさらに余ったやつはこういうの捨てています。はい、これが宣言です。
ここが元ですね。
はい、元です。これも赤いやからちょっと鉄分これが。
So this is one of the nearly 2,000 actively used hot spring sources in Beppu. The water flows naturally out of here, meaning it's not pumped up from below. I was expecting a more formal setup, but it's really quite haphazard. It's located in the lot of a house that's since been bulldozed, and if Inami-san hadn't taken me here, I would have thought it abandoned.
お湯がどっかここの真ん中がありますね。そこから湧いて出てここに一時溜めて、それから皆さんに分けてます。で、許可的にはこの中の一坪が光線地という形になる。自然だけれど、その出てるところに穴にパイプを入れて、で出やすくしてるんでね。で、これが私の方の温泉の管です。つながってる。で、そこでちょっと掃除ができる。またこれも開けなきゃいけないんですけど。
From the source of the hot spring, Inami-san has 110 meters of pipe underneath the road that eventually ends up in his front yard. He has some holding and cleaning tanks for the water, and in the end, it flows into his bathing room. He has an intense setup with multiple taps, but essentially, he can open his faucet and access the naturally flowing hot spring water that's welling out from the source about 100 meters away.
こっちのパイプですね。これがその温泉の供給施設にもう直接つながってる、パイプになってて、でここをひねるとそのお湯が出てくるんですけど、月額ですね。なのでずっと出してても止めてても料金は同じなんですけど、そこの大元のその温泉施設のところと契約をして、でそれでだいたい月にいくらみたいな形で、温泉のサブスクみたいな感じですよね、だから。
So a person wanting hot spring water in their home must either make a contract with an onsen company that has rights to a hot spring source, or you must own rights to a source yourself, which you then have to manage on your own. Most people nowadays make a contract with an onsen company.
温泉はその別府はですね、その火山性の温泉といってですね、別府は扇状地っていって山からずっと海に続いてこう滑り台のように下ってますから、下の地盤の低いところの温泉に関しては何もせずに自噴って言って自分からお湯が上がってきます。はい、そんなに勢いはないんですけど、もうそれで上がってきますから、そういう設備をしなくてもいいです。
In Beppu, 22,766 liters per minute naturally flow out of the ground. In comparison, 80,209 liters per minute are pumped out.
管をですね、ずーっと下に掘削して掘って、でそこにエアーを入れて、でコンプレッサーというエアーをかけて上にお湯を空気と一緒に上げてタンクに溜めて、そこからお湯を出すっていうやり方があります。ちょっと昔からのその大きな会社がもうそこで宣言を大きく持ってて、そこから各家庭に地面の下を這わして、でその家に入るようにっていうやり方の方がもう今多くなってます。
The costs involved with subscribing to an onsen company are as follows. You need to sign a 15-year contract, which is 1 million yen. You have to install pipes from the street to your home, which usually ranges from 100,000 to 300,000 yen. And then there's the hot water supply fee, which is 9,000 yen a month. It's a flat rate, so the bigger your household, the more value you get out of a subscription service. If you happen to own the rights to a hot spring source, then the costs are theoretically a lot cheaper. You pay property tax on the area that is 1 TSUBO in size. 1 TSUBO is the size of 2 tatami mats, which is 3.3 square meters. Inami-san owns 1/5 of the hot spring source, so his share of the property tax is only 200 yen a month. He also pays the same amount for using the space beneath the private road for his pipe. So in total, he pays about 400 yen a month, which is not bad at all. However, he had to pay 1.7 million yen for the installation of tanks, pipes, and pump on his property. Although, as previously mentioned, his setup is pretty intense, so a person could have a simpler setup for cheaper if they wanted to. Costs are one thing, but maintenance is another. Because there's no company managing this hot spring source, Inami-san and other rights holders are responsible for ensuring the pipes stay clear. The good and bad thing about a hot spring is its mineral content.
やっぱり温泉でもこれ土の中から出てるんで、やっぱり泥みたいな感じで溜まります。でここはだいたい鉄分がありますからちょっと黒っぽい色になって、これが酸化してしまうと赤い鉄分になって、そうですね、温泉の要する先ほどのスケール赤がつくとなかなか落ちません。正直言って鉄分の黒っぽいのもなかなか落ちないし。
Minerals can soften your skin and help with ailments, but they also remain as deposits in the pipes, walls, floors, and bathtub. Interestingly, these are mineral deposits outside of the pipe, which is not an issue. The biggest concern is deposit buildup inside the pipes, which can stop the flow of water.
温泉成分はつきますね。なんでちょっと強めの酸性の洗剤だったりとか、なんかそういうものでちょっと落としたりとか必要になる場合もあります。で本当はねこれもうちょっとその鮮やかな色なんですけども、この白くなってるのは全部温泉の成分ですね、これは。
熱いんですよね。
熱い、ちょっと。それちょっとそれだけちょこっと下にです。何本か白っぽいと思う。
あ、そうですね。ほんのり塩味ですね。
1%ぐらい、海だったら3%ですからね。1%ぐらいあると思います。
While showing us the hot spring source, Inami-san decided to do a little maintenance with a stick. The water was so hot that I ended up helping Inami-san out.
お、本当に熱い。そらつけきなくなるので、ギャッて引っ張ってください。ありがとう。ありがとう。
熱い。
そうじゃ。
何度ぐらい？
もうそこは48から50ぐらいじゃないかと。ね。
熱い。Hey, future Greg here. I thought there was no way that the temperature was below 50 degrees Celsius, so I decided to conduct a little test myself at home.
65.
Hot. Whew. Okay, I can put about 1 second, I think. Let's cool this down a bit here. So we cooled it down a bit, and this is 59. And yeah, I can put my fingers in there for a lot longer. Like, yeah. See how long I can put it in there? So that water had to be over 60 degrees Celsius. So the temperature is around 50 degrees Celsius, and if I put my hand in there, yep, I can put it in for quite a long time. So there was no way that that water was below 50 degrees Celsius. It was definitely above 60 degrees Celsius.
50度ぐらいでしょう、多分測ってないけど。60だったら手つけられないです、多分。
So the hot spring water around Beppu is too hot for baths and needs to be cooled down.
ずっとその地下に埋まってるパイプを通ってくるんで、最初出した時はちょっとまだ冷たいんですよ。ずっと地下に溜まってたお湯なんで、こうやって触ってみると分かるんですけど、まだ水なんです。
あ、本当だ。
ただこれがだんだん10分ぐらい経ってくるともう中に溜まってたパイプの水が全部出終わって、そうするともうだんだん熱くなってきて、最終的にはここ60度ぐらいになるって感じです。それをこう出しながらそれ全部お湯だとちょっと熱すぎるので水道も出して、でそれはもうほんとこうやりながらなんかもう手で触ってちょうどいいかなっていうぐらい、多分別府の人間だと43度とか結構ちょっと熱めのお湯が好きなので、ただそういう風な感じで自分たちが入る時はちょっと熱めにして、でお客さんが来る時はもうちょっとちょうどいいというか40度ぐらいになるような、そういった本当に手で調整しながらこうやっていくっていう感じですね。そうですね。もうこの辺りはもうほぼほぼ引いてるんじゃないかなと思います。で、うちはそんなタンクとかはないんですけど、そういうのがね、調整をしたいお家なんかはその自分のところにタンクだったりとか持ってて、一回そこにお湯をためて適温になるまで冷まして出せば加水が必要ないみたいなそういうお家も何軒かはあると思います。
The other reason to use a tank is so that the mineral content of the water doesn't get diluted by mixing in cold tap water. The mineral content of each hot spring is listed out in a certificate, which you can see in Toshiki-san's house, but also at any hot spring in Japan that's a legitimate hot spring.
今は多分新しくそのボーリング工事というか穴を掘るのは多分制限されてるんですよ。結構今別府ってその穴掘りすぎちゃって
各家庭でその温泉の掘削をできるんですけど、今はちょっともう温泉の量が少なくなってるっていうのが本音なんですよ。で昨年から温泉も100メーターこの宣言がここにあったらここから100メーターまで掘ったらいけませんよという法律ができてるもんですから。
While the days of drilling into new hot spring sources are basically over in Beppu, the good news is that in many places you can tap into the pipes of the hot spring water supply company. If you take a look at their map, all the areas in red are homes that can tap into their hot spring water supply. This means that an individual doesn't need rights to a hot spring source in order to have an onsen in their home. By pooling all its hot spring sources together, the company can service a lot of people. Even though there's basically no new drilling, there's still a massive abundance of hot spring water. That's because the city has mostly restricted its use for bathing purposes only. That explains why, when I was searching for alternate uses of hot spring water, I found very few instances, like this little koi farm, which uses hot spring water to raise the fish. One phenomenon caused by all the hot spring water everywhere is steaming sewers. And actually, even steaming rivers.
これはもうお湯が余って捨て場がないからこうやって側溝にこう出したりとかしてるんですけど。
それなんですか。こう下から湯気が出てるのは
それはもうただ
捨ててるというか。
側溝に流してるだけなんですけど。
Because you can't cap the naturally flowing hot springs, any overflow that isn't used goes into the sewers. This happens at Inami-san's house.
やっぱり止めちゃいけないんですか、温泉。
いやいや、これ自然に今流れてきてるんで止めてしまってもいいんですよ。この穴から泉源から流れてきてここに吹き出てきて、でここを止めてしまえばこれからオーバーフローして外に流れて捨てるだけです。捨てるだけ。もったいない。いつも大概半分ほとんど捨ててるんですよ今。
Not all steam is from hot spring water being drained, though. If you look at Beppu's skyline, you'll see geothermal steam rising above as well. While I think it's a natural wonder, some residents aren't so happy with the steam.
今なかなか逆に温泉があると湯気噴気ですね。それで電化製品が壊れるとか車が壊れるとか、特に別府は電化製品はあんまり長持ちしないとよく言われるんですけど、やっぱり温泉の硫黄の成分でちょっと電化製品が壊れたりとかっていうので結構嫌う方も多いですね、逆に。
まあ本当もう至る所にありますしね。あとはまあ温泉がないお家でもやっぱりその市営の温泉とか100円で入れたりするんですよ。だからもうそんなね安い温泉がもう至る所にあるんで。
まあ大体は昔若い頃入ったけど今はもう全く来ません。自宅のみ。はいは
朝起きて入って出かけて帰ってきて入って寝る前に入ってみたいな。
すごいいい。それがやりたいんでしょ？
Yes, being able to have an onsen in my home is a dream of mine. Even though our Japanese home only has a regular bath, I use it practically every day, even in the summer. It's true that the initial setup cost of an onsen in your home can be quite high, but the ongoing costs are quite affordable at 9,000 yen or $70 a month with the subscription service. Filling the bath is troublesome, considering that modern Japanese baths can fill themselves and maintain a set temperature, all with the push of a button. With an onsen, you need to manually adjust the temperature, whether it's by mixing in cold water, getting extra tank space, or devising some kind of system to slowly fill the bath like Inami-san has done with little holes he drilled into pipes. Maintenance of pipes sounds like a lot of work, but with the subscription service, you don't need to worry because they'll do most of it for you. Although you'd still need to tackle mineral deposits in your bathing room caused by the flowing water and steam. If you're a single person, it'd probably be easier and cheaper to go to a public onsen, or if your apartment has it, the communal bath called a dai okujo. Another benefit of going outside the home for an onsen is that you can experience all the different types of onsen water they have, from carbonated springs to iron sulfate springs. All that being said, it'd be pretty hard to give up the chance to have a hot spring in my home if I could. I don't know how many of you know this, but I've been making postcards for 4 years now. I'm not a great photographer, but I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised with how they look when mounted using cheap IKEA picture frames. When I started out, I used to only have a picture on the front, but I now have an additional picture on the back, along with a little blurb I write. It's mailed from Japan, and I try to use different stamps each month. If you're interested, I have them available on my Patreon, which I'll leave a link to in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace. If you had the opportunity, would you have a hot spring in your home?